What would you think if I told you that the desperate, magnetic pull you feel toward him, the one that occupies your thoughts, scripts your daydreams, and fuels your anxieties, has almost nothing to do with him as a man? That the entire dynamic, the push and pull, the intoxicating highs and the soul-crushing lows, is a drama being staged not between two people, but within the theater of your own psyche. Most women navigate the world of attraction believing it is an external game of strategy. They learn the right words to say, the right way to look, the right time to pull back. They study the man as if he were a puzzle box, believing that if they just find the right key, his affection, commitment, and validation will be theirs. But this is a profound miscalculation. It is the spiritual equivalent of trying to quench a deep thirst by endlessly polishing the outside of an empty glass. The irresistible woman understands a secret truth, a principle so fundamental it realigns her entire existence. She understands that the outer world, and every man in it, is simply a mirror. What she sees in him, his strength, his freedom, his infuriating aloofness, his captivating genius, is merely a projection of an undiscovered continent within herself. The intense longing is not for him, but for the part of her own soul he has been designated to represent. This internal shift, from seeking to embodying, is the singular alchemy that transforms a woman from a participant in his story to the formidable author of her own. The frantic energy of the chase, the constant analysis of his texts, the emotional roller coaster tethered to his moods, these are not signs of love. They are the symptoms of an outsourced soul. In the language of Jung, what she is often chasing is a phantom, an externalized image of her own undeveloped animus, the unconscious masculine principle within her. The animus, when unintegrated, is projected onto the men she encounters. If her own inner sense of direction, logic, purpose, and authority is dormant, she will become hypnotically drawn to the man who appears to embody these qualities. She doesn't want the man himself, she is starving for the archetypal energy he carries. And so, you may find yourself drawn to a man who is decisive and ambitious because your own inner compass is spinning wildly. You might obsess over a man who is emotionally distant and free because you feel trapped by your own emotional intensity. This is the unconscious contract. You be the strong one, you be the logical one, you provide the structure, and in return, I will pour all of my life force into you. But this is a pact that leads only to depletion. It is a constant, draining hemorrhage of her own power. The man feels this energetic weight, this unspoken demand to be a god, and he inevitably pulls away, not from her, but from the impossible role she has cast him in. He cannot be the container for her unlived life. The magnetism she seeks to create externally can only ever be generated internally, by reclaiming those projected qualities as her own. This act of projection is the great, unconscious mechanism that powers so much romantic obsession. A woman looks at a man and she does not see him clearly. She cannot. Instead, she sees the screen upon which she projects the films of her own psyche. She projects her golden shadow, all of her unrealized potential, her hidden courage, her dormant brilliance. He becomes a symbol of everything she could be, and his validation feels like the only key to unlocking that potential. She also projects her dark shadow, her deepest fears, her insecurities, her unhealed wounds. If she fears abandonment, she will be drawn to a man who is emotionally unavailable, staging a familiar trauma in the hopes of finally achieving a different outcome. She is not in a relationship with a person, she is in a battle with the ghosts of her own past and the specters of her future. Do you see the tragedy in this? You are giving him the credit for your own gold and the blame for your own darkness. He becomes a messianic figure or a demonic tormentor, but rarely is he seen for what he is, just a man. This internal drama is why the connection can feel so fated, so electrically charged. It carries the weight of your entire developmental journey. The intoxicating pull isn't love, it's the profound, aching call of your own soul, begging to be integrated. The work, then, is not to get him to see you, but for you to withdraw the projection and finally see yourself. The great turning point, the moment the chains begin to rust and fall away, arrives when she stops asking, "How do I make him love me?" and begins to ask, with brutal and terrifying honesty, "Why do I believe his love is the cure for what ails me?" This is the pivot from the external to the internal, a shift so profound it is a spiritual earthquake. It is here that she meets the unshakable wisdom of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. For years, her mind has been a tempest, its weather patterns dictated by the climate of his approval. A warm text message creates a sunny day, a period of silence brings a cold, unforgiving winter. But the Stoic insight offers a radical new freedom. The weather is not the problem, her reaction to it is. She cannot control if he calls, if he chooses her, if he stays. These things are, and have always been, outside of her dominion. What she can control are her judgments about these events. She can control the stories she tells herself. She can choose to see his silence not as a verdict on her worth, but simply as silence, an absence of data, not an affirmation of her deepest fears. This is the dichotomy of control, the foundational principle of inner peace. It is the realization that her emotional core need not be mortgaged to the whims of another. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about becoming the unshakable mountain, which can feel the wind and the rain, but is not moved by them. This journey inward inevitably leads her back to the animus, not as a projection, but as a power to be cultivated. The integration of the animus is the process by which a woman builds her own internal throne. She ceases to look for a king because she is too busy building her own kingdom. What does this mean in practice? It means she cultivates the very qualities she once projected. Instead of admiring his sense of purpose, she defines her own life's mission, independent of a relationship. Instead of being captivated by his logic and reason, she hones her own mind, learning to trust her own judgment and analysis. Instead of seeking his strength to protect her, she develops her own resilience, her own financial independence, her own emotional fortitude. She becomes her own source. The animus, when integrated, is no longer a haunting, critical inner voice or a desperate projection. It becomes a powerful, supportive ally. It is the part of her that allows her to set boundaries, to speak her truth without apology, to move through the world with a sense of grounded direction. She is no longer a ship waiting for a captain to set her course. She is the captain, the ship, and the sea itself. This is the essence of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, indivisible being. A woman who has undertaken this work emanates a different frequency entirely. She is not seeking a man to complete her, she is seeking a man who is whole enough to stand beside her in her own completeness. This path of integration is paved with the stones of shadow work. The shadow, in Jungian terms, is the repository of everything we have disowned about ourselves. It is the dark side we refuse to acknowledge, our neediness, our rage, our manipulative tendencies, our profound vulnerability. For many women, the shadow contains an archetypal needy child who is terrified of being abandoned. This child believes she must perform, please, and perfect herself to earn love. When a man pulls away, it is this shadow aspect that is triggered into a panic, hijacking her adult mind and flooding it with primal fear. True shadow work is the courageous act of turning to face this child. Instead of distracting yourself or blaming him for her pain, you sit with her. You listen to her fears without judgment. You ask her what she needs, and you, the adult woman, provide it. You provide the reassurance, the safety, the unconditional love she has been desperately seeking from external sources. This is a messy, painful, and profoundly unglamorous process. It involves admitting to yourself that yes, you can be jealous. Yes, you can be manipulative. Yes, you are terrified. But in owning these shadow aspects, you rob them of their power. They are no longer monstrous creatures lurking in the dark, but integrated parts of your whole self. This is the alchemical process of turning psychological lead into gold. By embracing your own darkness, you become paradoxically more full of light. As you embark on this journey, be prepared for the ego's rebellion. The ego, your sense of self, has built its identity around the external quest. It loves the drama, the validation, the predictable pain of the chase. It is a known reality. The inner world, the path of shadow work and individuation, is the unknown. The ego will scream that this is selfish. It will whisper that if you focus on yourself, you will end up alone. It will conjure phantom pains, a desperate nostalgia for the very dynamic that was destroying you. You may feel an almost unbearable urge to text him, to check his social media, to reignite the cycle. This is the ego's death rattle. It is fighting for its survival. Recognize this resistance for what it is, a sign that you are on the precipice of a monumental breakthrough. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." When the ego tempts you with the familiar poison of external validation, you must hold fast to the vision of the woman you are becoming, the woman whose peace is not for sale, whose worth is not up for debate. This resistance is the fire that forges the steel of your new self. To walk through it, to withstand the heat of the ego's dissolution, is to be reborn. This transformation can be understood as an archetypal shift, a deep and resonant movement from the maiden to the queen. The maiden archetype, in her shadow form, is defined by her relationship to others. She is the daughter, the girlfriend, the muse. Her identity is contingent, her power borrowed. She waits in the castle, hoping to be chosen by the prince, for his arrival is what will activate her story and give her life meaning. Her world is small, her focus singular, to be desirable enough to be rescued. But the woman who turns inward undergoes a profound coronation. She consciously withdraws her energy from this external waiting game and invests it in her own domain. She builds her inner kingdom, brick by brick, through self-knowledge, discipline, and courage. She becomes the sovereign queen. The queen's power is not derived from a king, it is inherent to her being. She rules her own emotional landscape with wisdom and justice. She does not seek validation, for she is the source of all validation within her own realm. Her gaze is not fixed on a man's return, it is fixed on the horizon of her own potential. Do you feel the energetic difference? The maiden's energy is needy, anxious, and pleading. The queen's energy is grounded, serene, and generative. She is not looking for a kingdom to join, she invites others into the world she has already built. This shift changes everything, for she is no longer playing the game of attraction, she has become the game itself. It is from this place of sovereignty that true, magnetic irresistibility is born. This is not the fleeting, superficial appeal of physical beauty or charming wit, but the deep, resonant pull of a woman who is whole. A man of substance, a man who is on his own path of integration, is not drawn to a vacuum he must fill. He is drawn to a fire where he can warm his hands. He recognizes in her a fellow monarch. Her self-sufficiency does not threaten him, it excites him. Her boundaries do not feel like rejection, they feel like respect, for herself, and therefore for him. Because she does not need his validation, he is free to give it without feeling the weight of her existence on his shoulders. The entire dynamic is transformed from one of scarcity and transaction to one of abundance and mutual admiration. He can feel that her happiness is not contingent upon his actions, which paradoxically makes him want to contribute to that happiness. She is not a problem for him to solve, but a mystery for him to explore. Her love is a gift freely given, not a debt to be repaid. This is the great paradox. The moment she genuinely stops needing him to be happy is the moment she becomes the most compelling woman he has ever met. Her lack of neediness becomes the ultimate aphrodisiac, for it signals a soul that is complete unto itself. This state is rooted in a profound, stoic sense of detachment. Not the cold, indifferent detachment of someone who cannot feel, but the serene, liberated detachment of someone whose inner peace is non-negotiable. She embraces the concept of amor fati, a love of one's fate. She accepts reality exactly as it is, without the exhausting struggle to bend it to her will. If he chooses to be with her, she embraces it fully, with an open and present heart. If he chooses to leave, she embraces that too, with grace and without internal collapse. She understands that the universe is not punishing her, it is simply presenting a different path. This is not passive resignation, it is active acceptance. Her emotional stability is no longer a fragile structure built on the unstable ground of his affections, but a fortress built on the bedrock of her own self-possession. She can feel desire, she can feel love, she can even feel the sting of disappointment, but these feelings are visitors in her kingdom, they do not have the power to overthrow the throne. This emotional freedom is the rarest and most beautiful jewel. It creates an aura of calm, a sense of safety that is deeply attractive to anyone, but especially to a healthy masculine energy that craves peace over drama. She has finally understood what Seneca meant, he who is brave is free. This journey culminates in a quiet rebirth. The frantic, obsessive energy that once consumed her has dissolved, replaced by a deep, abiding stillness. The silence in her mind is no longer a terrifying void but a sanctuary. She finds joy not in the promise of a text message, but in the warmth of the sun on her skin, the satisfaction of her work, the laughter of her friends, the richness of her own inner world. She is no longer a half-being, searching for her missing piece. She is a universe. The hole that she once tried to fill with a man's attention has been healed from within, filled with self-worth, purpose, and a profound connection to her own spirit. She may or may not be in a relationship, but it no longer matters in the way it once did. Her life is full and vibrant, with or without a partner. And should she choose to let someone in, it is from a place of want, not need, of expansion, not desperation. She has completed the great alchemical work, she has taken the raw, painful material of longing and projection and transmuted it into the gold of a fully realized self. She no longer looks at a man to see her own reflection, she has become the mirror. She has finally, fully, come home to herself. The quest is over. The desperate search for validation, for completion, for a rescuer, has ended at the only place it ever could, within the vast and sacred temple of her own soul. The world no longer feels like a place of scarcity and competition, but one of infinite possibility. She walks with a different rhythm, a grounded presence that communicates a simple, unshakable truth: she is enough. The opinions of others, the whims of a man, the outcomes of a romance, these are merely clouds passing in the vast sky of her being. Her happiness is her own creation, her peace her own responsibility. She has endured the fire of self-confrontation and emerged not hardened, but whole. She is a testament to the power of turning inward, of reclaiming one's own projections, and of building a life so rich and beautiful that a man's presence is a wonderful addition, but not a fundamental requirement. She has become the one she was waiting for. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.